Welcome in, everyone. I hope you guys are doing great wherever you're watching from today. We have some great news, some big news about the release of the last remaining American hostage being held by Hamas in Gaza. We've got him out. President Trump and his team negotiated a deal to get him out. But there's some very interesting details about this situation and who knew what, who was kept in the dark, and things of that nature. We're going to get into all of that and much more. Before we do, please make sure to like and subscribe. Hit that bell so you always know when there's a new video coming, and comment with your thoughts below. I love reading all your guys' comments. Now, let's get into it. As we all know, there were many hostages taken by Hamas on the October 7th, 2023 attack when they flooded over the border into Israel, and what we all know what happened next. There's been a massive war going on. The level of destruction and death is unlike anything they've seen in the region since probably going back to the Iraq War. It is brutal, and President Trump has been doing his best, and his team have been doing their best to reach some kind of deal where the destruction, the killing, and all of that can come to an end and the rebuilding process can start. What will that deal look like? We don't really know. And we also know, according to reporting, there is a significant amount of tension between Netanyahu and Trump over how they're going to deal with Iran. And the relationship has gotten quite frosty between the two sides, with Trump wanting a diplomatic solution and obviously Israel preferring a military strike. So it's very fluid. There's a ton of moving parts. And what we're going to talk about here now is the release of Edan Alexander. And he was the last of the American hostages. Obviously, the American president, his job is to prioritize the safety and health of Americans. Alexander was taken on October 7th. He's been in captivity for almost 600 days. So Trump, I'll throw this up on the screen for you here. He hopped on Truth Social and wrote the following: "I'm happy to announce that Edan Alexander, an American citizen who's been held hostage since October 2023, is coming home to his family. I'm grateful to all those involved in making this monumental news happen. This was a step taken in good faith towards the United States and the efforts of the mediators, Qatar and Egypt, to put an end to this very brutal war and return all living hostages and remains to their loved ones. Hopefully, this is the first of those final steps necessary to end this brutal conflict. I look very much forward to that day of celebration." So that's President Trump when he announced the release of Alexander, who I believe is from New Jersey or about that area. He joined the IDF, and was kidnapped, like I said, on October 7th. But notice what you didn't see in that statement. In that statement, you don't see Trump mention the Israelis anywhere in that statement. I thought that was quite odd because he talks about Qatar and Egypt, but you don't see any mention of the Israelis. Well, gets a little more interesting. So I'll throw this up on the screen for y'all. This is from Axios, and it says Steve Witkoff, who is Trump's top negotiator, Witkoff, got a little something in my throat, is currently in Oman, where he held talks with Iran on Sunday. Witkoff has been holding negotiations with Qatar, Egypt, and Hamas on a possible Gaza deal and wider peace discussions over the past few days, two sources with knowledge of the talks said. This is where this kind of blew my mind. Sources said Israel was not directly involved in the deal and initially learned about it from its intelligence services who spy on Hamas. Israel will not be asked to release Palestinian prisoners in exchange for the release of Alexander, but the nation will have to agree to a temporary ceasefire and a halt to drone flights over Gaza for a certain period of time to allow Alexander to safely leave the enclave, according to sources. So what happened here was the United States, with the negotiations to get Alexander back, to get the American citizen back, didn't tell Israel they were doing this. They left Israel out of the loop. They went to Qatar, Egypt, and Israel found out that this guy was going to be released because they were spying on Hamas communications. Obviously, Hamas was discussing it, and that's how they picked it up. That's a very common spy tactic, by the way. You'd be shocked by how much stuff is learned accidentally because they're spying on one person and then they get knowledge of a secondary source, a third source, whatever it might be. That is incredibly common. But it's fascinating to me that the United States of America didn't tell the Israelis, even though this guy is a dual citizen, he's Israeli-American or American-Israeli, however, whatever order you want to put him in, that they were going to go get this guy. And that to me, again, shows that there's probably some level of truth to the reports that Trump and Netanyahu are not getting along right now. I don't know why you particularly wouldn't tell Netanyahu that you were going to free this guy, and they had to find out by their spy communications on Hamas, at which point I'm sure the Israelis went to the Americans and said, hey, what are you doing here? But what does this mean? What can we learn from this? What are the takeaways? Let's get into that right now. There have been multiple reports out there that the Trump administration and President Donald Trump are either considering or have decided to push forward with their goals in the Middle East, not waiting for the Israelis and the Israeli timeline, but they're going to go in and do it their way. That's why they're talking with Qatar. That's why they're talking with Egypt. That's why they're having negotiations with Iran. That's why they were having direct negotiations, reportedly, with members of Hamas to get the hostages back. And that would lead me to believe how this played out, that they didn't give Israel a heads up that they were going to reach a deal to free this hostage, that those reports are likely credible. I think there's a lot of evidence to suggest that. And the fact that you wouldn't include the Israelis in this operation is probably the best sign yet that Trump and Netanyahu are actually clashing and butting heads over the issue of how are we going to do a peace deal with Iran? How are we going to do a peace deal in Gaza? How are we going to normalize relations with Saudi Arabia? Trump seems to have made the decision, I'm done waiting. We're going to do it our way. We are the global superpower. We're the strongest country in the world. We have the strongest military in the world, and we're not waiting for anyone. We're going to push forward how we want to push forward, and there's nothing anyone's going to be able to do to stop that. That's certainly the way it looks. Now, the good news is Alexander's home. He is soon to be with his family, if he's not already with them. Certainly by the time many of you watch this, he will be. I believe he's being flown possibly at one point to also meet with Trump. There's been some speculation reporting on that as well. So that's great news. He's an American citizen, and it's the job of the President of the United States to prioritize Americans above everyone else in the world. That's who he's elected to lead. That's who he represents. That's the country he's responsible for. But the details of this situation really lend a lot of credibility to the theory that Trump and Netanyahu are not particularly getting along right now. So then the question becomes, are they going to mend the fences, or is Trump going to continue to push forward? Because Trump is going to the Middle East. He's meeting with the Saudis. I believe he's meeting with the Qataris. He is going to meet with a bunch of different powerful leaders in the Arab world. And this also comes again after or as some people are pushing Trump to strike Iran's nuclear facilities, and Trump does not want to do that. Trump does not want a war. He wants a diplomatic solution. Will lines of communication between the two open back up? I don't have an answer for that. The only one who has an answer for that is Trump. But I will tell you this, when I read that Axios report, that the only reason the Israelis found out about this initially at first was because of who they were spying on in Hamas, the first thing that came to my head is the fact Trump didn't tell them is a pretty damning sign that the reports that they have a frosty relationship are probably true. So there's a lot of moving pieces here. We've got our guy back. We got an American citizen back. It does appear great progress is being made in the region as a whole in terms of pursuing peace. We'll see how it ends. We'll see what Trump and Netanyahu ultimately decide to do together. But I want you to let me know in the comments below, what do you think about this whole situation? What do you think about Trump, his stance? What do you think about the Israelis and what they're doing? Let me know in the comments below. Make sure to like and subscribe. And as always, I'll see you all next time.